The second year after divorcing Holden, he suddenly called me. "Where did I put that burgundy striped tie of mine? You said you wanted to turn that empty room into a nursery. Why haven't you had it cleaned up yet?" And his tone was clearly displeased. "Why weren't you at home early in the morning?" At the same time, I received a text message from Holden's sister, Sister Sophia. "Something's wrong with my brother's brain." To be precise, his memory only goes back to 2 years ago. Holden had lost his memory. This news surprised me for a moment, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. "Mr. Holden." I interrupted Holden and politely reminded him, "We're already divorced. If you've lost something, you should ask the housekeeper at home. Don't harass me early in the morning and ruin my good mood for the whole day." There was silence on the other end of the phone. The next second, Holden snorted coldly. His voice was certain. "Divorce? Is this your new way to threaten me? Come on, Sophia. Don't I know you? I admit I've been neglecting you these days because of some matters, but if you keep making a fuss, no one will be in the mood to coax you." There was a faint warning in his impatient tone. A message from Cynthia also popped up. "I've explained it many times, but my brother just doesn't believe you would agree to divorce him." The lines were full of helplessness. I immediately understood. It wasn't hard to imagine how certain and complacent Holden was when he refuted Cynthia. Just like when I first proposed divorce, everyone was saying, "How could that be possible? How could Sophia really leave Holden? Maybe she's just trying to force Holden to go back and accompany her again." With this in mind, Holden had always been able to put me last without any scruples, or even ignore me. I sighed. "Should I make hundreds of copies of the divorce certificate and post them everywhere you can see?" Holden had said this to me before. Before signing at the Civil Affairs Bureau, he stared at me expressionlessly. His tone was fierce, but there was a faint redness in his eyes. "After we go out, Sophia, if you dare to go back on your word, I'll make hundreds of copies of the divorce certificate and post them everywhere." Now I had the chance to throw these words back at him. But Holden still didn't believe it. He just went on talking to himself. "Okay, it was indeed my fault. I apologize to you. But I've also explained to you that day everyone decided to go pick up Ivy at the airport together. Something happened to her family, and she's not as glamorous as before. We grew up together, and this circle has always been about fawning on the powerful and trampling on the weak. If I didn't go to show my support, what would others think of her in the future?" As he was talking, Holden's tone became impatient again. He had never been a good-tempered person. Probably only when it came to his good friend Ivy would he be a little more patient. However, his words gave me an idea of how much Holden's memory had regressed. That incident was the trigger for my divorce from Holden. The day Ivy returned to the country was the anniversary of my grandmother's death. I had made an appointment with Holden to go sweep my grandmother's grave together several days in advance. Afraid that he would forget, I even sent him a text message to remind him the day before. But my calls and messages went unanswered. I thought Holden was busy. So that day, I went to accompany my grandmother by myself, talked to her for a while, and explained on Holden's behalf that he didn't mean to not come. He was just too busy. On my way back, I was in a minor car accident. When I was at the hospital getting my wounds treated, the news that Holden went to pick up Ivy at the airport was on the hot search. I stared at the photos of the two secretly taken by paparazzi on my phone for a long time before I remembered to make a call. The call was answered. It was Ivy. "Holden is helping me with my luggage and doesn't have time to answer the phone. Do you have something, sister-in-law?" she asked me casually. There were a few people around her making a fuss. What could Sister Holden have? She just wants Holden to go back and accompany her earlier. I've seen her use this trick several times already. TSK. Checking up on him again. Holden, with sister-in-law watching you so closely, how will we dare to ask you out to play in the future? Ivy pretended to be angry and told them to shut up, then said with a smile, "Holden, you can't forget us, you're good buddies. Just because you have a family now. Can she compare to you guys?" Holden chuckled. He took the phone, and his voice immediately turned cold. what is it? I didn't want to quarrel in public, so I tried my best to remain calm. I was in a car accident. I'm at the hospital now. Is it serious? I just scraped my skin and bled a lot, so it's not a big deal. Holden interrupted me. He probably believed what his buddies said, and his tone was irritable. You don't need to always make excuses to keep an eye on me. I'm not fooling around outside. Also, a little scrape like that will heal if you just bear with it. Ivy almost broke her leg back then, and she wasn't as delicate as you. I'm not like sister-in-law. Ivy chimed in and said jokingly, if I had a boyfriend like Holden, I'd be even more delicate than sister-in-law. The group burst into laughter again and jeered, then let Holden care more about you too. Ivy said with expectation, Holden? Through the phone, I clearly heard Holden chuckle. His voice was casual, sure. My hand gripping the phone suddenly froze. The nurse called me to change my dressing. Holden heard it too. But he just said in an extremely calm tone, I'll go back early after this. Can't you? The phone was hung up. Oh, they still had to hold a grand welcome party for Ivy. After all, she was their good friend they grew up with. So I bought the medicine by myself, took a taxi and went home. Holden came back very late, but he brought back a pearl necklace as a gift. I was a bit busy today. He bent down to kiss me and put the necklace on me himself. He looked satisfied for a rare moment, good taste. I thought he was talking about himself, and my expression softened a little. As I was choosing my words carefully, Holden continued, now you can rest assured, right? I told you Sophia wouldn't be angry. It's just you who worry about this and that and insisted that I bring her a gift. He didn't care at all. Who are you talking to on the phone? I was stunned for a moment before I noticed that Holden was still wearing headphones. And from his words, I realized that the necklace wasn't specially given to me by Holden. Something was said on the other end of the phone. Holden looked at me, took off his headphones. Then the girl's coquettish voice clearly reached my ears. I was just afraid that sister-in-law would misunderstand. She also greeted me through the phone, sister-in-law, don't worry. I watched him the whole time today. I definitely didn't let any girl get close to Holden. Hearing this, the smile on Holden's face disappeared. He gave me a cold glance with a hint of displeasure. So it was like a bucket of cold water poured over my head. I forced a smile. I really didn't have the energy to quarrel with Holden that day. So I just took off the necklace and went upstairs first. I limped as I went upstairs. But Holden didn't notice. He was still responding to Ivy's words intermittently. Is sister-in-law still angry? What does she have to be angry about? Holden snorted coldly. I told her to take a driver when she went out, but she didn't listen. This time it can be a lesson for her to remember. Probably because I had spoiled his fun of going out with his friends. Holden was clearly irritated when he said this. I thought Holden would ask me what had happened that day after he came back. Or explain to me why he didn't accompany me to visit my grandmother that day but went to pick up Ivy at the airport instead. He had promised me after all. But nothing. The next morning, Holden got dressed with his back to me. His tone was natural, as if nothing had happened. Where did I put my cufflinks? And like many times before, I started trying to comfort myself again. I knew Holden was always like this. He liked to have fun and didn't want to be restrained. But I still expected that I could change him. I didn't mean to forget that it was the anniversary of your grandmother's death that day. Holden's complaining voice brought me back to my thoughts. But probably feeling guilty, he paused. He was unusually humble. Can I go and apologize to grandmother? Holden had said these words to me 2 years ago too. After he later found out that I, who had been taking care of all his affairs, no longer interfered in his life because of the Cold War, and he had a lot of inconveniences. Holden belatedly realized that he should give his nominal wife a reason. He remembered his broken promise. So Holden pitifully apologized to me and to my grandmother. Holden was younger than me, and he had been used to coaxing the elders in the family since he was a child. I had always been soft-hearted about this. It seems funny when I think about it now. I forced a smile. I bent down to pack my daughter's small school bag. my voice calm, "I'm not making a fuss, nor am I angry. I had already divorced Holden. And I was living a good life with the large amount of property I got from the divorce. So now, no matter what Holden did, it had nothing to do with me. An apology is still necessary. After all, I promised you to go and see her together. It was my fault for breaking the promise." But Holden seemed to have misunderstood something. He let out a sigh of relief and said, "Then where are you now? I'll come and pick you up." His tone was urgent. I even heard Holden angrily telling someone to get lost in a low voice. But the next second, my daughter ran over with her small school bag on her back, panting as she said she wanted to help me. She then took my hand and looked up at me. "Mom, let's go to kindergarten." Her voice was clear. Holden heard it. There was a pause on his side. After a while, Holden's hesitant voice came, "We have a daughter?" "That's my daughter. She has nothing to do with you." I patted Abby's little head, motioning for her to go put on her shoes first. Then I corrected Holden's words and told him calmly, "That child died over a year ago." When I fell down the stairs and Holden instinctively grabbed Ivy first, I had a miscarriage. I failed to protect that child. Holden looked extremely pained and remorseful at that time. He held my hand and kept saying sorry to me over and over again. He also said that we could have another child in the future. "It's gone, but it's okay. After all, we're still young." Holden lowered his head and gently rubbed my hand, his eyes red. It seemed like he was trying to confirm something. His tone was stubborn as he repeatedly asked me, "Sophia, I'll be with you. And you'll always be with me, right?" His voice was trembling. At that moment, I vaguely felt that Holden might like me. But I didn't want to dwell on it anymore. So I took the opportunity to divorce Holden and asked for a large sum of money because Abby needed a lot of money for her treatment. That was a child I picked up in the hospital. She was abandoned by her biological parents in the hospital. The little girl had a tumor in her brain, and they couldn't afford the treatment. When I saw Abby, she was huddled in a corner by herself, her head hurting badly. But she was tightly clutching a photo in her hand, whispering to comfort herself, "Abby doesn't hurt. Abby will be okay." Finally, she whispered again, "Goodbye, Daddy. Goodbye, Mommy." I looked at her vaguely. It seemed as if I saw the unborn child bidding me farewell. Abby knew what was happening to her. Yet she could still smile and comfort me. "Auntie doesn't hurt. Abby will blow on it for you." On the same day, I lost my own child, and Abby was abandoned in the hospital. Later, I adopted Abby. Holden helped out because of his guilt. But now Holden doesn't remember anything. So I said with a smile, "You don't need to come and pick me up. But you can give my daughter a red envelope. Just transfer the money to Cynthia." Then, regardless of Holden's reaction on the other end of the phone, I promptly hung up the call. After adding this number to the blacklist, I took Abby to kindergarten. Cynthia really transferred a large red envelope to me. I accepted it without hesitation. And she also explained to me that Holden had lost his memory because he was hit on the head while protecting Ivy. They both deserve it. When talking about this matter, Cynthia sneered, "Since Ivy that bitch returned to the country, she's been hanging out with those guys all the time. Many of those guys have girlfriends, but Ivy not only doesn't keep her distance every day, but also sticks to them and acts all innocent, saying that we're just good friends." Which girlfriend could stand that? Her brother went to defend her, and my brother blindly protected her without even asking what was going on. He deserved to get hit. I nodded, but was really puzzled. He lost his memory because of Ivy. How dare he come to me? Cynthia said yes. After waking up, he kept clamoring for you to accompany him. I don't know where he hid the divorce certificate. No matter how I explained that you two were divorced, he just wouldn't believe it. Finally, he snatched my phone, found your phone number, and called you with all sorts of random excuses. She couldn't help but complain. She also said that Ivy had been coming to see Holden every day these days. But for some reason, Holden just refused to see Ivy. But don't worry. My mom has hired someone to watch him. He definitely won't be allowed to disturb you. Cynthia promised me earnestly. However, it wasn't long before she was proven wrong. That day when I went to pick up Abby from kindergarten, as soon as I got out of the car, I heard someone call out to me, "Miss Sophia." "Dr. Jason?" I was a bit surprised when I turned around and saw Jason. I paused for a moment. "What are you?" "My nephew was transferred to this kindergarten not long ago." The young and handsome doctor had a hint of helplessness in his eyes. "I got off work early today, so my sister asked me to be the errand boy." I nodded in understanding. Jason was Abby's attending doctor. We weren't exactly strangers. But it was still a bit awkward. Fortunately, Jason started talking about Abby's condition very naturally. I gradually relaxed and walked towards the kindergarten with him. When I heard Jason say that he had already contacted foreign experts and the probability of Abby's surgery being successful was very high, I couldn't help but smile. "Thank you so much." Before I could finish my words, a sudden strong force yanked me, pulling me away from Jason. Immediately, a familiar and gloomy voice rang out, "Sophia, is this the cuckold you found for me, damn it?" I didn't expect to see Holden again. After all, when we got divorced, there was quite a stir. And Holden was invited out of his office by his parents' bodyguards and forced to sign the divorce agreement. "Sophia, well done." He threw the pen away and stared at me fixedly, the hostility in his eyes almost palpable. He had been a proud person since he was a child. Now, having been forced to sign his name almost with his head held down, he must have felt really bad. But if he felt bad, I felt a bit better. I calmly put away the divorce agreement that had taken almost half of Holden's family property and looked up at him. "I couldn't see you around these past few days. I thought you liked me and were hiding from me because you didn't want to get divorced." Holden's face stiffened for a moment. He sneered, "Nonsense. Isn't this what you wanted? Why are you so angry now?" I was puzzled. It was understandable that Holden didn't like me. After all, I was the daughter-in-law specially chosen by the elders of the Holden family. The Sophia family needed the funds from the Holden family, and the Holden family needed a daughter-in-law who could keep Holden in check. Holden's temper had indeed calmed down a lot in these years. But he was also more impatient with my restraint. Only I was still ridiculously hoping that Holden could like me a little more back then. "I'm not angry." Holden subconsciously refuted and then stubbornly tried to make up for it. "Why should you be the one to propose divorce? I just said, oh, and got my things ready to leave." "Wait." Before leaving, he called out to me again, "If you take one step out of this door, you really won't have any chance to regret it." There was a barely noticeable tremor in his gritted teeth voice. I ignored him and walked straight out. "Sophia, if you do this, I'll really misunderstand that you like." After taking one step out of the door, I turned around and sighed. But halfway through my words, I suddenly stopped. I looked at Holden in surprise. He was still glaring at me viciously. He looked so fierce as if he wanted to tear me apart alive. But his eyes were red, and there were faint traces of tears. Was he crying? I suddenly remembered that when we were signing the papers earlier, he had been looking down for a while. I thought he was trying to hold back his urge to get angry. Seeing that I turned around and stopped, thinking that I regretted it, Holden tugged at the corners of his lips and regained his complacency. "It's useless even if you regret it." "I won't." "No." I shook my head and interrupted him. "I just remembered to ask you if you could spare some time to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow morning." "I'm in a hurry." Holden's face instantly turned ashen. What else did he say back then? "Oh, it seemed like he said something like, 'I'll be a dog if I ever see you again,' as a harsh threat." But Holden back then was still the high and mighty favored son of heaven. "And not now. Have you finally been beaten up by someone?" I looked at Holden's rather disheveled clothes and the scratches on his arm and said without much sympathy, "God has eyes." Holden's anger that had been building up suddenly stopped. He frowned and subconsciously refuted, "Who could beat me?" I just said, "Oh," and tried to break free from his hand, but Holden, sensing my intention, tightened his grip even more. It was as if he was afraid that something would be gone once he let go. His eyes were full of hostility. "Is he the father of that child?" Are you two here to pick up the child together? At the same time, Jason's hand also landed on Holden's arm. He was polite, let go. But the force he used made Holden's sleeve bleed again. Holden still didn't let go. He just turned pale. When he looked up at me, his expression suddenly became aggrieved. Honey, it hurts so much. Pretending to be pitiful and cute, these were Holden's specialties. He rarely called me honey, only in bed. In that aspect, we were quite in tune. When Holden was in the mood, he liked to act coquettish with me. Or when he realized that he had really made me angry, Holden would soften his attitude and call me honey with a pitiful look. He knew I was most likely to be soft-hearted towards him. But I rarely got really angry with him. But that was all in the past. I forced a smile, a sarcastic one. If it hurts, let go. Seeing that this didn't work, Holden's expression turned cold for a moment. He frowned but still didn't let go. He just took a deep breath, forced a smile, and started talking to himself. That child must be at least 3 years old, right? We've only been married for a little over half a year. So did you meet this man before we got married? Everyone meets a few scumbags when they're young. It's nothing. I've done a lot of stupid things to make you angry before. I know you still like me. I don't mind. Are you refusing to come home with me because you have to take care of that child? It's okay. I can pick you both up and take you home, Mr. Holden. Jason interrupted Holden's words. This time, he used a clever trick to force Holden to let go of me. His smile on the face was still appropriate. The kids are about to come out. You'll easily scare her like this. What the hell does it have to do with you? Just this simple sentence completely snapped Holden's already taut nerves. He raised his fist and swung it at Jason, his expression gloomy. This is my wife. What does it have to do with you? Jason was close and unprepared. He got punched in the face. When Holden wanted to hit again, I stopped him. Slap. The sound of the slap was crisp. He was slapped to the side, his expression instantly stunned. Are you awake now? I stood in front of Jason, my tone cold. If you want to go crazy, go back to your home. I pressed my tongue against my aching cheek. Holden suddenly burst out laughing, and for a moment, his expression couldn't conceal his ferocity. He stared at me unblinkingly. Are you hitting me for some random man? His tone was one of disbelief. Brother. Not far away, Cynthia was hurrying over with several bodyguards. Holden glanced sideways and snorted. Quick, aren't you? He stood there, his head bowed. His drooping fringe covered most of his face, making it impossible for me to see his expression clearly. Nor did I care to. Are you okay? I looked at Jason's face with some apology. Sorry for getting you involved. The kids are about to come out. Jason, however, interrupted me, his tone, if Abby sees this, she'll surely be heartbroken and cry. Then we'll have to coax her again. But there was a smile in his voice. I was stunned. Abby did like Dr. Jason a lot. But what he said seemed a bit off. Holden, meanwhile, was tightly pursing his lips and looking up, staring at Jason with hostile eyes. He was about to make a move, but was stopped by Cynthia, who called the bodyguards. Cynthia, who had promised me earnestly just 2 days ago that she would definitely not let Holden come to disturb me, was now both gossipy and guilty when seeing this scene. She spoke quickly. I'll take him back right away. Cynthia, take your sister-in-law back too. Holden, blocked by the bodyguards from getting close to me, turned his head irritably and growled at Cynthia. Cynthia couldn't help but roll her eyes and complained, she's the ex-sister-in-law now. What right do I have to interfere with her freedom? You, Holden was furious. Wait. I stopped them. When Holden looked at me, there was a glimmer of something in his eyes. I ignored it. I just went back to the car to get a stack of papers and then handed them to the bodyguards, motioning for them to hold them up for Holden to see. When he saw the contents clearly, the raging anger that had been consuming Holden earlier was instantly extinguished. His throat rolled violently a few times. But he was left stunned, unable to utter a single word. What are these? Cynthia also curiously leaned over to look, and then was instantly rendered speechless. I just looked at Holden extremely calmly. Memory loss doesn't mean those things didn't happen. Holden, you once said that if I regretted it, you would make copies of the divorce certificate and post them everywhere I could see. But now it seems the situation is reversed. Although you've forgotten, I can do all this for you to help you remember. The stack of papers. They were all copies of the divorce certificate that I had made a few days ago, and they came in handy just now. I don't believe it. Holden's gaze quickly shifted away from the divorce certificate as if it had been burned by fire. He lowered his head. After a long while, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. But it was just a very feeble, I don't believe it. But no one cared. Why don't you care about me anymore? He looked up at me, tugging at the corners of his mouth, as if trying hard to suppress the tremble in his voice. Softly and pitifully, he just has a bruise on his face, and you're so eager to check on him. But I jumped from the second floor. Jumped from the second floor? I was stunned and looked at Cynthia for confirmation. Cynthia nodded helplessly. Holden continued, when I was sick, you didn't come to see me. I wanted to come out to find you, but they stopped me. So I had to jump out of the building. I think my leg might be broken. But Sophia, why don't you care about me anymore? You clearly weren't like this before. You used to like me a lot. The aggrieved words eventually turned into complete bewilderment and confusion. And then I suddenly came to my senses again. Because Holden had taken my kindness to him for granted. He could recklessly squander my love, and he was convinced that no matter what he did, I would never leave him. So Holden used to introduce me to others, Sophia, my wife. When saying this, Holden's tone was more like he was describing an object that had no independent ability and could only rely on him to survive. I liked Holden. Even loved him. But all this was based on the premise that Holden's changes were trending in a positive direction. I still had expectations of him. But expectations and love both have their limits. He was young. He was immature. He could act recklessly, relying on my love. But there's no such thing as he could easily hurt his lover just because of these reasons. If he did, it could only mean that Holden didn't love me, and couldn't learn to love me either. I woke up a bit late. But fortunately, I was able to break away cleanly. We've been divorced for over a year. If you hadn't shown up, I think I should have almost forgotten about you. I looked at Holden and smiled again. Memory loss isn't an excuse. If you can't leave me alone, I don't mind using some external means. Just like when we got divorced, I forged evidence of Holden cheating on me with Ivy. Whether it was due to his character or to protect Ivy, Holden wouldn't clarify or explain. So I successfully got the elders of the Holden family to force Holden to sign the divorce agreement, and morally silenced those people from the Sophia family. Fine. Holden told the bodyguards to get lost. He looked at me, his eyes burning red. You're really something. But soon, this man straightened up, looking down on me from above, as if everything that had just happened was just a test, an act of his. Now he was back to being the proud man I knew. Holden gritted his teeth and sneered. His tone was menacing. Sophia, I don't fucking need you anymore. Holden left quickly. Cynthia stayed to handle the aftermath. She had to make sure those onlookers didn't go out and spread rumors. I apologized profusely when I saw the bruise on Jason's face. And Abby was very happy when she saw Dr. Jason. But when she noticed his face, she looked worried. Uncle Jason's face has turned green and black. But it's okay, Uncle Jason is still very handsome. Abby really likes Uncle Jason. She tried to comfort Jason with her words. Jason didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He picked up his giggling little nephew and casually rubbed Abby's head. This is a badge. A badge? Yes, Jason looked at me and chuckled softly, the hero badge for saving the beauty. Abby also looked at me. She let out a long "oh." My heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, Jason didn't say anything else. He even refused my invitation to dinner. Next time. Dr. Jason frowned in distress and rubbed his little nephew's head vigorously, saying with a grudging tone, I have to send this little rascal to his mother. Don't mess up my hair. Abby pulled my hand and whispered to me that Uncle Jason's nephew was a really cool little boy in kindergarten. Uncle Jason is also a really cool uncle usually. I looked at this pair of uncle and nephew who were bickering without any regard for their images and smiled with my eyes curved. It wasn't until we were about to leave, Jason suddenly called out to me who was about to get in the car, "Sophia." "HM?" I turned to look at him. "Do you need help to get that guy out of your life completely?" Jason's eyes were full of seriousness. The earlobes hidden under his black shaggy hair had turned red without my noticing. He coughed lightly and quickly explained, "I mean, given that guy's character, he probably won't come to look for me again." I smiled and interrupted Jason's words, "Thank you, Dr. Jason." Probably understanding the rejection in my words, Jason was stunned. He touched the tip of his nose and muttered softly, "No wonder Abby said I have to work hard." "What?" I didn't hear clearly. "Nothing." Jason winked at Abby, who was already in the car, in front of me. "This is a little secret between me and Abby. But Miss Sophia, if you encounter any difficulties in the future, could you maybe think of me once in a while during your free time? If you think that's too often, just once is fine." He looked at me, his eyes curved. There were faint glimmers of light in his eyes. The feelings of the young are straightforward and passionate. I said okay with a smile. But actually, I didn't take it to heart. It wasn't until more than a week later that the originally booked AUS Theater was willing to pay extra compensation to break the contract and cancel our performance. I was stunned. The posters of the dance drama have been on display for over a week. How could they suddenly cancel the performance by breaking the contract? I heard that some big capital got involved. My assistant was also very worried and asked me, "Sister, the performance is about to start. What should we do now?" "Announce that the performance time will be postponed. I'll find another theater." I didn't think much about it at the time. I was just busy contacting other theaters. But the more well-known theaters were either fully booked or simply refused outright. After several attempts, I vaguely felt that something was wrong. Just then, a strange call came in. I answered it. "Sister Sophia, I'm so sorry." Ivy's voice came through. "I didn't know that dance drama was yours. I just wanted to find a bigger place to hold my birthday party, so I asked Holden to help me look for one. I just heard about this today. How about I contact other theaters for Sister Sophia? I'm sure others will surely agree for Holden's sake." She said she was coming to apologize, but there was a hint of smugness in her tone. "Oh. So the big capital was Holden." I forced a smile. Thinking that more than a year had passed, and these people's tricks were still so childish. "Sure." I smiled, "I don't have a suitable place here either. So you go ahead and find one for me." Ivy probably didn't expect that instead of getting angry or embarrassed, I actually agreed. For a moment, she was at a loss for words and didn't know what to say. "Ivy." I couldn't help but sigh, and my face turned cold. "Wasn't the lesson I gave you before not profound enough?" "Sophia." Ivy's voice suddenly became shrill. I had once had an argument with Holden. Because Ivy accompanied Holden to pick out the wedding anniversary gifts for us. It was a pair of wedding rings. Holden couldn't remember my ring size. He called me, but the call didn't go through. Ivy suddenly said she could try it on. "I think my hand is about the same size as sister-in-law's," she said with a smile. Then she blatantly started trying on the rings. Holden vaguely felt that something was wrong. But he didn't stop her. Because he thought it would be more convenient this way. All he did was to buy another pair of rings according to the size that Ivy had chosen. It was said that when they were changing the rings, Ivy almost couldn't keep the smile on her face. So Holden thought it was incredible that I got into an argument with him because of this. Angrily, "It was you who didn't answer my call at that time." I tried my best to calm myself down. "Well, what if I went to pick out a gift for you and asked a male friend who is about the same size as you to try it on first?" "Don't you dare." Holden's eyes and brows immediately darkened, and his tone was menacing. "If you dare to do that, I'll skin that man alive. You see, it's not okay even if we just switch the roles. Ivy is different." Probably realizing why I gave such an example, he grabbed his hair a bit irritably. We grew up together as good buddies. I've even seen her in diapers. What's more, Ivy herself has told me that she has someone she likes. I suddenly found it really funny, but back then, no one thought Holden was in the wrong. Holden's friends thought I was being overly sensitive. My parents even asked me to take the initiative to bow my head and apologize to Holden. And they righteously accused me, what's wrong with a man having some female confidants outside? As long as he doesn't make any principled mistakes. Besides, wasn't he picking out a gift for you? And Holden would never humble himself because of this matter, so he threw the ring to Ivy. That same day, Ivy posted a WeChat Moments update. A ring that fit her size. The caption was, "Thanks for Holden's gift." There were a bunch of people making a fuss in the comments. Holden even gave it a like. I knew that without Holden's permission, Ivy wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous. I also knew that Holden was trying to force me to take the initiative to bow my head and go back to him. I took a screenshot of this WeChat Moments update. As one of the pieces of evidence of Holden's infidelity. Out of respect for the elders of the Holden family, I didn't make these public. But I didn't show any mercy to Ivy. It was I who released the photos of her getting drunk with those people, lying together, hooking shoulders and even taking off her clothes until only her underwear was left during a game of truth or dare. I also collected evidence of her bullying classmates in high school. Once these were released, Ivy's good image that she had carefully crafted online was almost completely ruined, although it was finally suppressed by Holden. But Holden was also severely punished by his father with the family rules. I thought he had learned his lesson. I didn't expect that the trick of taking my things and giving them to Ivy to force me to bow my head remained the same. This performance was extremely important to me. Holden could have known this if he had bothered to look into it a little. But he still did it. So childish. And disgusting. Ivy, my voice remained calm, I still have a lot of things on hand. If you still want to be your popular and pampered young lady smoothly, you'd better hold Holden back and stop provoking me. Also, tell him, didn't he say he didn't need me anymore? Is he now coming to humiliate himself like this? As soon as I finished speaking, there was a sound of something being kicked over on the other end of the phone. I also faintly heard someone exclaiming, "Holden," in a low voice. Oh, so Holden was there too. Ivy was probably extremely angry and hung up the phone without saying another word. And I casually sent a copy of the conversation recording to Cynthia. Cynthia? Question mark. Cynthia, she actually dared to come to you? Cynthia, no, my brother actually helped her to discuss you together? Because of the miscarriage incident, the people of the Holden family had always felt guilty towards me. And Ivy, the main culprit, was even more disliked by the people of the Holden family except Holden. So before I could say anything more, Cynthia had already promised me earnestly that she would definitely retell her brother's misdeeds to her parents. I thought it was lucky that except for Holden, the people of the Holden family were all normal. At least there should be no interference from Big Capital in finding a theater next. Just as I put down my phone, I looked up and saw Jason standing at the door. Looks like you've already sorted it out. I didn't know how long Jason had been standing at the door or how much he had heard. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. He raised the folder in his hand, complaining a little in his tone, but I thought I could be of some help. Looks like I'm late again. Great dancer, you really don't give me any chance. Jason sighed. He was smiling with his eyes curved in a rather cute way. I shrugged, maybe I'm used to relying on myself. Since I was taken to the Sophia family after my grandmother passed away, I had only myself. Especially after marrying Holden. All that the Sophia family left me with were accusations. Why are you dancing? Wouldn't it be better to be a full-time housewife? Why are you being so stubborn with Holden? Aren't men all like this? Why are you being so petty? How dare you get divorced? Sophia, do you know that no man will look at you favorably after divorce? What use are you to the Sophia family? So I left Holden. And left the Sophia family. Jason was suddenly silent for a moment. Then he grabbed his hair a bit distressedly. I find that I can't bring myself to say things like asking you to rely on me more. What? Because you won't be anyone's accessory. He looked at me with burning eyes, so all I can do is to add the finishing touches. These were words that Holden would never be able to say. It was also at this moment, I realized that Dr. Jason, who was described by the nurses as cold and almost inhumane, had a small dimple on his left cheek when he smiled. Jason handed the folder to me. I looked down and flipped through it, and casually said, "No wonder you don't smile much in the hospital. That dimple is quite charming." Jason didn't say anything. It wasn't until I looked up in shock after reading the file that I realized this guy had blushed from head to toe. So the surprise was instantly replaced by amusement. "So Dr. Jason is so easily shy?" Jason subconsciously turned his head to avoid my teasing gaze. He pursed his lips and rather stiffly changed the topic. "So, what do you think of the Ulan Grand Theatre?" I was also silent. This was a long-established National Grand Theatre. When I was considering other theaters earlier, I didn't even dare to think about this one. "Don't overthink it, afraid that I might misunderstand," Jason quickly explained. "My grandfather knows about this. I showed him the rehearsal clips of your troupe, and he's willing to give you a chance to try." So my attention was instantly diverted. "Where did you get the video of our rehearsal?" Jason made a doubtful sound, and his eyes darted around a bit guiltily. Finally, he answered honestly, "Abby sent it to me." I understood. No wonder the girl suddenly said she wanted to come and watch our rehearsal. So she had made an arrangement with someone. It was I who asked her to do it. Don't be angry with her. Jason's voice got lower and lower as he spoke. He sat in front of me properly, his head hanging down. He looked so dejected that it seemed as if invisible ears were drooping down too. My eyes fell on the file again. This was a chance to climb up, and I couldn't possibly give it up. "Thank you." I relaxed my brows and eyes and sincerely thanked him. "I owe you one." Then that shallow dimple appeared in front of me again. "Sure." Jason smiled so that his puppy-like eyes were filled with tiny specks of starlight. He said, "Then can you let me rely on you next time, okay?" I agreed with a laugh. But I didn't expect that the chance to repay the favor would come so soon. Dante's call and Jason's text message came almost one after the other. Sister-in-law. Dante's sister-in-law was a bit stuttering, but his tone was anxious. "Can you come and stop Holden? He's almost beating someone to death." I was looking down at the chat interface with Jason. There was a photo. A wine glass filled almost to the brim. And a hand with a tinge of red showing in the corner. Jason looked pitiful. "QAQ, I can't drink anymore. Can Teacher Sophia come and save me?" With an attached crying Samoyed emoji. Since hearing the other members of the dance troupe call me Teacher Sophia during rehearsal, Jason also insisted on calling me that. He was quite tangled about how to address me for quite a while. Jason's feelings for me were almost completely unhidden. But I didn't dislike it much. "Okay," I replied. Jason couldn't be just a doctor forever. His grandfather had clearly told me this. "Don't overthink it." Seeing my surprise, the old man chuckled like a naughty kid. "He didn't do something stupid like trading his future with me to get you a chance. If he had really done that, I would have clearly refused this kid before even seeing the video. After all, a person who doesn't cherish his own future has no right to fight for others." Even so, I knew that Jason must have paid a lot for this chance. Picking up a drunk Dr. Jason wasn't that difficult. And Dante, seeing that I didn't reply, suddenly raised his voice. There was a hint of indignation in it. "Sister-in-law, Holden was fighting with others because of you. Dante said that they went out for a group dinner and ran into some people they didn't get along with. And that person brought me up, which made Holden furious. Did I force him to fight?" My tone was calm, and I just found it funny. Don't use others as an excuse to cover up your ridiculous face-saving issues. You're not some delinquent teenagers who would just throw punches because of a provocation when you were just over 10 years old. If you really want me to do something, then all I can do is to call the police for you. Dante was left speechless by what I said. The commotion on the other end got louder. He simply threw out an address, said something like, "Only you can stop Holden," and then hung up in a hurry. So I sent a text message to Cynthia and then went to pick up Jason. Dr. Jason had drunk quite a bit, but his drinking behavior was still okay. After getting drunk, he sat there obediently waiting for me to pick him up, his clean puppy-like eyes staring at me unblinkingly. Almost the moment I picked up Jason, a phone call kept coming in persistently. I hung up several times. But the other party seemed determined not to give up until I answered. So when Jason went to the bathroom, I picked up the phone. "You chose Jason?" The person on the other end sounded certain. "Even if I get hurt or might even be crippled by others, you just went to him. Sophia, you don't want me anymore, do you?" The last two words were spoken extremely softly. I sighed. "President Holden, you don't need me that much." Holden had always had many options. That was his confidence. But this time, the other side was silent for a long while. Jason hadn't come back yet. So I suddenly laughed. "Actually, Holden, the time when Ivy caused me to have a miscarriage was kind of a help to me, in a way. If that child had been born, I probably wouldn't have been able to leave so resolutely. Strictly speaking, it was you who killed that child with your own hands. Don't pretend to be so affectionate, Holden. It was you who abandoned the child and me. I had once longed for a family so desperately. I had fantasized countless times about what it would be like after my child was born. I was different from those people in the Sophia family. I would have loved him, her wholeheartedly. I would have taught him, her to become an optimistic and free-spirited child. That used to be my bond. But Holden destroyed it all with his own hands. As soon as I finished speaking, Holden's breathing instantly became heavy and rapid. I didn't know how much he had remembered. And he just hung up the phone as if to escape. You see, even now, this man wouldn't even lower his head to say, "I'm sorry." I looked up. I caught a glimpse of Jason coming out of the toilet, hiding awkwardly behind the green plants, hesitating. I turned around and walked away. He immediately followed, his head down, saying sorry. I just don't want you to go to him. He doesn't deserve it." I ignored him. Jason followed closely behind me like a student who had made a mistake. I opened the car door and got in. He just stood outside. Until the car started, he didn't seem to have any intention of getting in. I had driven quite a distance. Jason was still standing pitifully by the roadside. I reversed the car, rolled down the window and said, "Not getting in?" His eyes lit up instantly but then dimmed quickly. He whispered, "I don't dare." "What are you afraid of?" Jason sniffed and said in a muffled voice, "I'll never dare again next time." "What about this time?" He muttered softly, "I still dare this time." I was both angry and amused. "Get in the car, or I'll really leave." So Jason quickly got into the passenger seat, looking at my expression carefully. So I had to say, "Just this once. Never again." "Okay." Jason smiled with his eyes curved. Holden had a car accident while speeding. It was said that after making a phone call, he rushed out like crazy. His left leg was completely disabled. Holden hadn't been this reckless for a long time. This memory loss had made him revert to his former wild and lawless temperament. However, this time, there was no one to restrain him all the time either. When Cynthia chatted with me about this matter, her mood was quite complicated. She stammered, "Sister Sophia, I used to think that my brother didn't like you and that divorcing you was something he had always wanted to do. But Cynthia said that Holden had always worn a key around his neck. When he was pulled out of the car this time, he was still tightly clutching that key. I was curious, so I tried the key on every room in the house. Finally, I opened one. In that room, there were all my materials and photos from the past year or so. It was almost filled up. The housekeeper said that whether it was before or after the memory loss, my brother always locked himself in the room alone and stayed there for the whole day. He has been like this since he was a child. When he makes a mistake, he is so stubborn that he won't bow his head. He won't admit he's wrong even if he's beaten to death." Cynthia rambled on. She only stopped when she noticed that I had been silent all along. She asked cautiously, Sister Sophia, my brother is awake. Can you come and see him? I refused. She sighed and didn't say anything in the end. But a few days later, Cynthia called me again. Her tone was anxious. Sister Sophia, my brother might have gone to look for you again. I looked at the disheveled person on the screen, expressionless. It's not might. And, if you can't even keep an eye on a patient, I suggest the Holden family hire a new batch of bodyguards. Cynthia said sheepishly that she would come right away and asked me to hold him back first. I sighed and opened the door. Probably not expecting me to open the door suddenly, Holden, who was soaking wet, visibly panicked for a moment. Finally, he pursed his lips and forced out a sentence. I can't find a shirt of mine. Did you take it away when you were packing your things? This excuse was so lame that it was almost laughable. I looked at him. We've been divorced for a year. Even if I had accidentally taken it, I would have thrown it away long ago. So Holden shut up. He stood there quietly, looking down at his shadow on the ground, not looking up. After a long while, he finally called out to me, Sophia, I'm at my wit's end. His usually proud temperament was rarely downcast. Holden raised his hand to cover his eyes, his voice choked. I miss you, but I can't even find a single thing of yours to keep me company. It seemed that he had regained his memory. I was stunned for a moment, but quickly figured it out. Right after the divorce, Holden had called me, shouting angrily for me to go back to the villa to pack my things. If you don't pack them, I'll throw them all away. I really didn't want to see him at that time, so I just asked Holden to throw them away. It seemed that he had done a thorough job of cleaning up. Holden put down his hand, his voice trembling. He was eager to explain to me, I wasn't hit on the head because I was protecting Ivy. She said she had some of your old things, so I went to see her. When those people rushed over, Ivy pulled me in front of her to block for her. After losing my memory, I didn't know why you were so angry with me. You were so angry that you didn't want me anymore. So I locked myself in that room to force myself to remember bit by bit. I finally managed to remember a little. I used to think that I could wait until you weren't so angry anymore. Sophia, I always thought that you still liked me, that I always felt that we would be together again, but suddenly there's someone else by your side, and that child even asked if that doctor liked you. I've never liked anyone. I don't know what it means to like someone. I don't like Ivy. I think I should like you, but it seems that I've realized it too late. I don't know, I regret it. Sophia, I regret it. He was organizing his words in a rather chaotic manner. Finally, he looked at me almost helplessly and despairingly, but what should I do now? Tell me, teach me, okay? In the end, he was almost crying uncontrollably. I looked at Holden, who was too timid to even take a step forward. Suddenly, I remembered that I had really liked him a lot before. He was wild and unruly because he had the right to be proud. Besides the status of being the heir to the Holden family, Holden himself was a brilliant existence. He was excellent enough and had always been the favored son in others' mouths. Liking someone has never had a reason. By the time I realized that I had been staring at Holden for too long, I had already fallen in love with him. I still remember the uncontrollable joy when I learned about the arranged marriage between the Sophia family and the Holden family. And that joy made me almost forget. A relationship shouldn't be just me staring at Holden unilaterally for a long time. He hardly ever gave me the same response. By the time I realized it, the former liking had gradually faded away. So I shook my head. I can't teach you. Your liking, your feelings are all too high and mighty. I can't afford them. It's not like that. Holden opened his mouth to refute. But all words seemed extremely feeble in the face of what had happened before. In the end, he could only repeat, it's not like that, in a low voice. Then, not knowing what came to his mind, his eyes lit up again. I can change. I was being immature before. I know you met Abby privately. I interrupted Holden's words. The little girl had been looking worried those days. She was frowning at such a young age, unable to hide anything. She actually took the initiative to confess that Holden had gone to see her. He said he should be my dad. The little girl pouted. He also showed me your photo together, saying that you were husband and wife. Since I call you mom, I should call him dad. I thought for a long time but couldn't remember any photo together. Finally, Abby described it to me. Then I remembered that it was indeed one of the few photos of me and Holden. He didn't like taking pictures. That time was also because of my birthday. Holden had promised to do one thing for me, so he reluctantly took a photo with me. However, he still had a grumpy face in the photo. I thought that after the divorce, Holden had burned all the photos. Did you call him Dad? I was curious. Abby shook her head vigorously. She said, Dad is a very close person to Mom in this world besides me. He should love Mom as much as Abby does. But that uncle doesn't. Even a child can see this and understand this truth. I repeated Abby's words to Holden and said, Holden, as an adult, why are you still making excuses? Holden was left speechless. His face was pale, and his eyes were burning red. Jason was standing behind me with Abby in his arms at some point. Holden looked away and took a glance. But he quickly moved his eyes away as if burned. Are you two together? He asked me in a hoarse voice. I didn't answer. Holden asked again, so, I've really lost you this time, right? You should go back. Cynthia said that Holden had been causing too much trouble recently, and the elders of the Holden family were really angry. If this continued, he would no longer be the heir to the Holden family. Uncle and Aunt are old. You shouldn't always make them worry. And Cynthia, she has been cleaning up too many of your messes behind you. I finally told Holden, I can accompany you to grow up, but I can't wait for you to grow up forever. Holden left on his own. Jason asked Abby and Tyler to go and play first, and he himself followed me closely. I was amused. Didn't you hear everything? I'm just afraid you'll be soft-hearted. He was pretending to be so pitiful. Jason couldn't help but mutter softly, he's such a green tea. He even used the suffering oneself to win pity tactic. I haven't even used it yet. He was still not convinced. And I just flicked his forehead, go and cook. Oh. Jason looked pitiful, however, Holden didn't come to look for me again after that. Cynthia, on the other hand, found the time to come and chat with me about gossip. From her, I learned that Ivy was torn apart by the girlfriend of one of her good buddies again. Because she was caught in bed red-handed by that girl who brought a group of people with her. That girl was really fierce. She even disfigured Ivy directly. This time, no one protected her anymore. It wasn't long before I heard that Ivy slunk out of the country again. I didn't pay too much attention to the things that happened later. The performance at the Yulin Grand Theater was extremely successful, which kept me really busy for a long period of time. And every time during the performance, Jason would sit in the audience with Abby and Tyler, watching me. Right in the place where I could see them at a glance. The eyes of the two kids and Jason himself were all shining brightly. Thus, a sense of satisfaction and happiness welled up in me. I never saw Holden again either. Nor did I inquire about his news. It was just that when I got married to Jason, I received an anonymous text message. Just 4 short words, Happy Newlyweds. I knew who sent it. But it didn't matter anymore. After all, we had already become 2 parallel lines that had nothing to do with each other.